Welcome to The Explainer. So, you're an aspiring entrepreneur, right? You probably already know that having a brilliant, game-changing idea is, well, it's really only half the battle. The other half? Making sure that idea actually survives the real world. Now, I know a lot of people view legal issues as this boring hurdle, or just an endless pile of red tape. But today, we're going to reframe that entirely. We're going to look at legal knowledge not as a roadblock, but as an absolutely essential toolkit. A toolkit designed to protect your future big idea and actually help you build an empire. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's map out our roadmap. We're breaking this down into 5 easy steps. First up, the legal stages of a business. Second, protecting your intellectual property. Third, choosing the right business structure. Fourth, the basics of bankruptcy. And finally, number 5, keeping your legal costs down.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the legal stages of business.
So here's the thing about your legal needs. They aren't static. They evolve pretty dramatically as your venture grows from, say, a quick sketch on a napkin into a fully operational company. We can break this whole life cycle down into 3 distinct phases. First, you've got inception. This is where you're laying the groundwork, figuring out your structures, securing initial capital, and critically protecting your intellectual property. Then, once your doors actually open, you move right into the ongoing phase. Here, your legal focus totally shifts to managing the day-to-day stuff. We're talking personnel law, hiring policies, signing sales contracts, negotiating leases, that sort of thing. And finally, we reach growth and continuity. If you're successful, and hopefully you are, you'll start dealing with much more complex tax structures, zoning regulations, consumer law, and even planning for the long-term continuity of ownership. Knowing exactly where you are on this timeline is huge, because it tells you exactly which legal tools you need to grab from your toolkit.
Moving right along to Section 2, protecting your intellectual property. I want you to think of intellectual property, or IP, as building a massive impenetrable fence around your bright idea, so competitors can't just swoop in and steal it. Now, there are 4 main types of fences you can build. First up, patents. These protect novel inventions and generally give you a solid 20-year monopoly to make or sell that invention. Pretty powerful, right? Second, copyrights. These are for literary or artistic works. Think books, music, software code. And these last a crazy long time, literally the life of the author plus an additional 70 years. Third, we have trademarks. This is your brand identity. You know, a distinctive name, a logo, a symbol. A trademark registration is initially good for 10 years, but you can actually keep renewing it forever as long as you're still using it. And finally, trade secrets. These have an unlimited duration and protect confidential business info, but only as long as you actually keep them a secret. Let's look a bit closer at how you actually secure a couple of these.
You know, a lot of new founders think getting a patent requires some sort of dark magic. It really doesn't. It's actually a highly logical, step-by-step process. Step 1, always starts with the applicant doing their homework. Basically asking, has your invention already been patented? You've got to go to the USPTO website and do a thorough search. If it turns out your idea is indeed a new, useful, and non-obvious invention, you then decide on the type of patent you need. Usually that's a utility patent. From there, you determine your filing strategy, decide whether you need international protection, and figure out if you want to file it yourself or use a registered attorney. And honestly, using an attorney is highly recommended here.
Okay, moving to the second half of the process. You prepare for electronic filing. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, the USPTO, examines your application. Now, don't panic if they reject parts of it at first. That's totally normal. You'll just have to file replies or maybe appeals. But if you overcome those objections, you reach the finish line. You pay the issue and publication fees, and bam, the USPTO officially grants your patent. Yes, it takes some time, but it's a structured, predictable path to locking down your exclusive rights.
But here is a really crucial takeaway, guys. Not everything needs a formal government filing. Sometimes your absolute best defense is simply keeping your mouth shut. A trade secret involves business processes or information that gives you a competitive edge precisely because your competitors don't know it. We're talking about things like a vital customer list, a strategic plan, or a famous recipe. But there's a catch. The law only protects you if you take reasonable steps to protect the secret yourself. If you leave your million-dollar recipe sitting on a public park bench for anyone to find, well, it's literally no longer a trade secret.
Okay, Section 3, choosing a business structure.
So if IP is the fence around your idea, your business structure is basically the vehicle you choose to drive on your entrepreneurial journey, and you absolutely need the right vehicle for the right terrain. Let's look at your primary choices here. A sole proprietorship is definitely the easiest to start. It's just you. But the massive downside? Unlimited liability. Meaning, if the business is sued, your personal assets, like your house, your savings, are on the line. A partnership is very similar, but with co-owners. And again, you face that scary unlimited liability. Now, if you want safety, you form a corporation. It acts as its own separate legal entity, giving you limited liability. The trade-off, though, is double taxation. The corporation gets taxed on its profits, and then you get taxed again on your dividends. Finally, we have the limited liability company, or LLC. This is a super popular hybrid vehicle. It gives you the limited liability safety of a corporation, but it has the single pass-through taxation of a partnership. Best of both worlds, really.
So the real trick is trying to find that perfect balance between liability and taxes. And this number right here, 100, represents a very specific solution, the S Corporation. An S Corp allows you to avoid income taxes at the corporate level. So no double taxation, all while still retaining the limited liability benefits of a regular corporation. Sounds perfect, right? But the catch is that the IRS has strict rules. An S Corp is strictly limited to 100 or fewer shareholders, and they all must be domestic individuals. It's an incredible tool for sure, but you really have to play by their rules.
We are also seeing totally new types of vehicles emerge for the modern entrepreneur. Take the B Corporation, or Benefit Corporation. This is a structure specifically for founders who want their vehicle to focus on way more than just the bottom line. See, traditional corporate laws can actually make it kind of difficult to prioritize employee, community, or environmental interests over pure raw profit. The B Corp structure flips that. It legally bakes those social and environmental missions right into the very DNA of a for-profit business.
All right, let's shift gears to Section 4, the basics of bankruptcy.
Look, sometimes, despite your absolute best efforts, your business vehicle hits a wall. And that is exactly where bankruptcy laws come in. Now, they aren't there to punish you. They exist to ensure a fair distribution to creditors and to protect debtors from extreme demands when their financial obligations simply exceed their assets. But it's vital to understand the concrete differences in how this actually works. Chapter 7 is what we call straight bankruptcy, or liquidation. This basically means closing up shop entirely. Your non-exempt property is sold off, most debts are discharged, and you get a completely fresh start. Chapter 11, on the other hand, is reorganization. Under Chapter 11, the company doesn't die. Instead, the debtor continues to operate the business and submits a formalized plan to pay back a portion of the debts over time while having the rest of it discharged.
And then, for individuals or sole proprietors who have a regular income, there is Chapter 13. Think of this as a specific lifeline for the smaller player. It's an adjustment of debts that allows you to request an extension. You get to pay down your debts over a 3 to 5 year period, rather than just liquidating everything you own on the spot. It's a way to keep possession of your assets while you actively work your way through the financial storm. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, keeping legal costs down. We've definitely covered a lot of ground today, but how do you keep these legal expenses from sinking the ship before it even leaves the harbor? Well, here is a rapid-fire list of empowering tips to save you money. First up, establish a clear fee structure up front. Yes, legal fees are negotiable. Always get clear written agreements on everything to prevent any expensive confusion later. Attempt to settle disputes rather than rushing headfirst into incredibly expensive litigation. Handle basic matters within your own comfort zone. You really don't need a lawyer to draft every single routine email. Suggest cost-saving methods like sharing electronic forms, and please, for the love of your budget, only consult your attorney during normal business hours to avoid massive premium charges. Seriously, lawyers love billing by the minute. If you can, combine several matters into one meeting to really maximize your time. So, we've gone from the very inception of a tiny idea right through the complexities of corporate structures and even into the safety nets of bankruptcy. The big takeaway here: legal challenges aren't roadblocks. They are the actual architectural blueprints for building a sturdy, lasting business. So I'll leave you with this final thought. You have the next $1 million idea. So which legal structure will you choose to protect it? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we will see you next time.